Awesome. I think we have a lot of people here that are excited for this conversation today. So let's get started. Welcome everyone to Infinix Office Hours. I'm very excited to welcome Michelle Juette, who is an expert in all things RCM and medical coding, who's joining us today to really delve deep into the world of medical coding and the challenges that practices such as hers face within the space. And we'll also delve into some of the realities of the solutions that are out there in the market and what works, what doesn't work. So let's get started, Michelle. Thank you for joining us today. Why don't we just start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and your practice?
Well, certainly. My name is Michelle Juette. I'm a radiology certified coder, was an AAPC certified coder as well for many years. I've been with Yakima Valley Radiology now going on 32 years as their business services manager. And prior to that, I worked with the Open Heart team in a similar capacity and got my start as a surgical tech way back when. So I have the clinical background that helps me with a lot of what we do today.
Awesome. So let's get right into it, right? Within your practice, and someone who has, a lot of experience within the space, what are some of the major challenges you're seeing in the broader RCM space, but specific to medical coding as well?
Well, obviously, the transition from ICD-9 to ICD-10 tanked a lot of practices. Coders were not ready. The similarities, while they're there, the complexities overnight almost made coding impossible to teach from the ground up. What used to be something that we could sit somebody down in that was interested and really be able to train them on the way really doesn't exist anymore. And similarly, we saw a lot of the products that we had access to for technology did very well in the ICD-9 realm, but under ICD-10, it struggled as much as a lot of our coders did.
That makes sense. So, before we get into, I think you touched on some of the solutions. Can you just walk us through what is the process of medical coding currently within your practice?
So for us, we're a hospital-based radiology group. So everything to us comes electronically in HL7 files. Files come in daily. Our system matches up the demographics to the visit, to the charges, and everything has to be there before it allows us to get it. The product that we use right now drops everything out into what we call Charge Central and allows us to manipulate it, if you will. We can put it into specific groupings or buckets, whether it's by a payer or by CPT codes. But right now, we pretty much hands-on everything. And that product has a mapping tool, but nothing that's considered AI or anything much more than just a very generic programming.
Great. And I think that gives us good context here as well. So I want to get back into some of those challenges. You spoke about the ICD-9 to ICD-10 transition. Why do you think providers were not better set up to deal with that transition?
I think it was really hard. As much as we wanted to think we understood what was coming, I don't think we really did. When you go almost, overnight from having one or two codes to pick from to having 40 or 50, not only is your software not always ready for it. We were fortunate we had something that worked well, but I don't think the totality of what we were being handed, even with looking at this book, the understanding of the complexities for just coding something as simple as fractures that used to be very easy now became very, very complicated. And I think a lot of the coding staff also had never been given the depths of information that they now needed to do that same coding.
Right. I think that makes sense. And with the nuances of ICD-10, can you just elaborate on how it is that your team, for example, today is going out and doing that ICD-10 coding? Are they looking at, index searches? Are they looking at ICD-10 codes online? What do they do?
A little of both. We started out obviously looking at books and realized that that was very quickly not a good way to do it. There are some good products out there for searches. There are some free websites out there that are very good at cryptic searches. And that actually has been a good one for us. ICD10data.com is a free website, does have ads that helps them pay it, but very good at cryptic searches. Our software that we have also allows us to do some minor searches, but really the best thing for us has been finding a product like that online to where you can plug in or be able to search by specific section and then pare that down from within that website.
Right. And, you know, having talked to other providers, I know this is very common, icd10.com, but it's still a very manual process, right? Which
Very
is you have to go and essentially go down a decision tree, an index search is what they call it, where you find the exact billable ICD-10 code. So, you know, I think with that context, I think a lot of providers look in the market for solutions. And in today's space, I think the hot word is AI, automation, and these autonomous coding solutions. Can you tell us what your thinking was when you were trying to find a solution, and what were your expectations, and what did you see out there?
Well, AI represents the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good because the premise is out there. We used to be a beta test for A-Life. That was a very early kind of precursor to AI. It really was still programming, and while everybody calls it NLP, natural language processing, NASA level programming, it really still was programming that was guiding what it was doing. It really did not have the ability to interact and learn as much as being given what we have now. But that said, we're still dealing with an extremely complex change with ICD-10. AI sounds good, and unfortunately, we get a lot of overpromise and under supply. So many of our AI companies out there are saying, "Well, it's going to be the end all be all. We'll give you 70% straight to bill, no problem." And in reality, that's not true. If you have a practice where you have total control of your templates for your transcription, for your reports, for what your doctors do, you can much more easily change and match what AI may need. But we deal with hospitals. I have no control over what they do. I mean, minor. My doctors are very willing to help us. But when you have a moving target, AI in all reality is going to do an okay job on some things and not so good on others. So the realistic expectation is that it might help you with your coding. You have to be able to look at, I'm not going to probably send everything to it. So do I even have a software that lets me decide, am I going to send it chest x-rays? Am I going to send it ultrasounds? Am I going to send it, how am I going to decide what might work? And you kind of have to dip your toe in the water as you start, pick and choose what you send. But then you also have to look at, is there anything else that we can do with AI that might help us with coding, but maybe not be that AI solution that's going to promise everything. One of the things that in talking to you, the ICD10data.com, you're right, it is still very manual, but not only do I have to go put keystrokes in to look something up, I now have to go rekey that code back into my software. So even something as simple as a project that would take what I have, maybe suggest what might be there, or give me the ability to launch out and then click and have a code come back in without having to rekey it. Those are the types of evaluations you have to look at. Where can I save keystrokes? Where can I save time? And what's going to be realistic?
No, that makes sense. I think there's quite a few things there that I'd like to follow up on. I think the first thing that you said is very interesting, right? Where a lot of these vendors are promising no touch coding to an extent of 70 to 80%. And I think what gets left out there is some of the nuances and complexities and just the flexibility that's needed for different types of use cases and circumstances that are really not accommodated. And as you said, right, it sometimes is a moving target too, which is not understood at a sophisticated level. So I think on that end, when you did try some of those solutions, I'm guessing the results were not what was promised, right?
Not only not what was promised, but also very quickly become apparent who had the skill to even look at trying to make improvements. A lot of companies are trying to do a one size fits all. It's great when you're talking about, putting spark plugs in a car. I mean, it's one size, it either fits or it doesn't, but that doesn't work in healthcare. Like you said, I have payers that may want something different. Some of my payers won't pay unspecified cough. That cannot be primary if I have anything else. And something as simple as needing to make something a primary code over a secondary code has to take hands-on if you're not going to be able to automate it on that back end. And so every time we have to go touch something because it's not happening on the front side, it takes a tremendous amount of time on a denial code or on a claim status response coming out of a clearinghouse for a reason. So the AI solutions that promised all of this, economy of speed and accuracy, all of a sudden is actually increasing the amount of work because of the extra time it's taking to do it on the backside.
No, absolutely. And, those are the two main considerations for us here, right? Which is the speed / productivity of coding and the accuracy. And what ends up happening is that, they want the one size fitting all approach goes so heavy into trying to increase productivity and no touch for 70-80%, where they don't realize that, all these different nuances and use cases that you have to accommodate for, they actually require collaboration. And if you don't take them into account, you actually, cannot get to that level of productivity, or you will sacrifice accuracy, which I think is the most important thing over productivity too. You don't want to build something that will get denied or that will get partially approved. So I think what you had also mentioned was a little bit more of that collaborative approach, which may involve a little bit work from both ends, but at the end gives you way more value, right? And
Exactly.
can you talk a little bit more about how, say the assisted approach, I think what we call it, as opposed to the complete autonomous approach, may be better?
Well, definitely. Looking at AI and trying to do more of the autonomous, the things that stand out are, when you need a change, again, it has to be collaborative, whether or not they can even do that. Realizing that all of the nuances do become a factor, that it may not be cost effective or even reasonable to ask programming to do all of those pieces. I know them for my practice. I don't know them for anybody else's practice. So taking a step back and saying, instead of trying to go for AI, what can I do to enhance my productivity? I don't necessarily need a whole nother body, but I need a way to maybe speed up or enhance what I do a little bit quicker, help the other coder if I'm off for that day to be able to handle it. So looking at something again that can give me suggestions, maybe not code everything, but if I could take what I have and have, more of it, whether it's 30%, 40%, 50% suggested codes, they may or may not be correct, but it's going to help drive me to the area I need to go to. Or again, it's going to give me an idea of what do I need to do, or can I launch out of it and bring a code back in without having to do all the additional keystrokes. I need something that will help, not necessarily do it all. And as I've gone over the years, it really is about tweaking where you can. And something that works is infinitely more helpful than something that sort of works. So if I know going into it that I'm going to do hands-on, but I'm going to do a better job and have more stuff given to me day one out of the gate, there are going to be those things that are correct. And you simply hit a, okay, release that. And that's going to speed up the process, but I still have the final say on whether or not it gets released. That allows me to make sure the accuracy is there, but a much quicker piece of accuracy.
Right. And, I think there was another important point you mentioned, which stuck with me, was I think people are so keyed into the productivity increase by identifying codes. They sometimes miss that there's other valuable features out there as well. Like you said, the integration piece, which is if you are identifying codes, but you still have to go in and key them back into your system, that's a productivity loss. So just having that ability to not do that and have that interface is also valuable, right? So I think that really makes a lot of sense. So, to wrap this up, what is some advice that you would give to other practices like yours who are, trying to improve their coding process and productivity?
I think the biggest thing is do your due diligence. Again, the AI companies, and not throwing stones at you, we're kind of getting off the ground and really liking what we're looking at as far as enhancement, not end all be all. But you really have to sit down and figure out what it is you're trying to do. I'm not going to replace a person. I'm not going to do 100% no matter what I do. But what are the reasonable expectations? What can that company actually offer to provide? You want to evaluate and spend some time looking. Do a test file, have them give you feedback of what the ability is to do. Look at what your requirements are. Again, you know what the issues are for your company. The AI company doesn't. And so kind of lining out what's going to improve it, and then being honest. If somebody gave you something, but it's only going to maybe give you 10 or 20%, is it going to be fed back into your system? Can you easily review it? Is it going to cause more work? Or is it going to become a platform that it's a one and done? I'm going to touch it. If it's given to me correct and I can hit release, I don't have to look at it again. If it's not, can I fix it and release it? And I don't have to look at it again. And the problem with a lot of solutions really are that even when they say it's done, you still have to find a way to touch it on your system before it goes out, or you start getting into the post-payment denial issues. And so it is due diligence. It is going to be work up front. It is going to be working through an entire process, but you get back out of it what you put into it. So if you put time and effort into it, you work with a company that works with you, and you come to a working solution that addresses both sides, I think ultimately everybody will be happy. It will become a long-term solution, not a short-term, was not a good thing to try.
No, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So I think we can open the field here for questions. Does anyone have any questions? They can go ahead and just put it in our Q&A. Okay, I think we have something. Okay, the question is, we are beta testing an AI autonomous product currently, and Michelle's concerns and questions are what the coders involved have been thinking as well. Okay, less of a question, more of a comment, but certainly seems to be the sentiment that is resonating out there, Michelle. So
it is, and as a manager for a department, don't discount your staff. There are times when it's change and people don't like change, but this really must become a productive piece of what you do. And if it's not done well, if it's not done accurately, can very quickly overwhelm your staff with the issues it causes. So don't be afraid to go slow. Don't let anybody ramrod you into you have to go live or you have to start something on a given date. If you have qualms about it, slow it down, go back and revisit it.
Awesome. Well, with that, we can conclude our session today. Thank you, Michelle, again for joining us. And thank you, all the attendees, for attending. I'll talk to you later, Michelle. Have
Awesome.
a good day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.